So let's talk about how you can do it right, okay? First thing I want to make sure that you're doing is I want to make sure that you understand that your attitude in this game counts. It counts. Secondly, I want you to understand that in order to be effective and assertively networked, you have got to stand out from the crowd. And thirdly, what I want you to understand is this. You have got to take charge of the game. That's it. That's what Ivan teaches us if you read his books. You have got to take charge of the game. But let's go back and let's talk a little bit about your attitude. And what does that mean? And I want you to understand this, that if you are not willing to do something different, then guess what? You can't expect a different result. You can't. You see, look at your chapters. Think of the networking event you went to. Take, for example, last night. Recognize that your visitors represent an opportunity. But you've got to do something different. You've got to seize that opportunity. Because guess what? They're not going to seize it for you. You have to go out and you have to do it. So your attitude affects your income. If you're not networking with those visitors, guess what happens? Nothing, right? Nothing happens. So here's what you can do. At your next event, this is what I want you to do. I want you to change your attitude. Jerry gets the surveys, and Jerry talks to a lot of the visitors that come to your chapter meetings. He talks to those people who come to our events. And you know what they invariably say to him? They invariably will say something along the lines of, you know what? I didn't really feel welcome at that meeting. Now, doesn't that scare you? Shouldn't that scare you? It should. So here's what I want you to do. And I know some of you are sitting there going, yeah, but not at our chapter. Our visitors feel real welcome, right? But I'm going to challenge you that indeed they don't. They don't. And I want to challenge you to do something different. Change your attitude. But recognize again that you've got to take that first step. See, they come into a networking event or they go to one of our socials and they're just standing there waiting because they don't know what to do, but you do know what to do. So here's what I want you to do. When you go into that meeting, I want you to take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. And then I want you to make a concerted effort to introduce to yourself to absolutely every visitor in the room. Now, you've got a chapter of 25 people, right? How would that visitor feel if suddenly 25 people during the course of that open networking or the course of that meeting, how would that visitor feel if 25 people introduced themselves to them? More importantly, how would they feel? And more importantly than that, how would that affect your business? See, attitude counts, right? Here's another thing you can do. I know all of you keep track of the referrals that you get, right? Right? You'll work with me on this. Right? Of course, you all keep track of the referrals you get. But what I want you to do is something different. I want to change your attitude for a second. I want you to start keeping track of the referrals that you give. And I want you to keep track of who you give them to. Because if you're not giving them to everybody, guess what? How effective are you being? How is your attitude changing? You see, recognize B&I is about what? Givers gain, right? So change your attitude to make sure that you are giving more referrals than you're getting. How will that affect your business? You see, attitude, it's a state of mind. Nobody cares, honestly. Nobody cares that your business is in recession. Nobody cares. The only person that really cares is the person who's doing worse off, and he just wants to hear from you that somebody else is doing as bad as he is. That's the only person that cares, all right? So changing your attitude means that you will make more money regardless of the economic factors, okay? So we go back to what Ivan said, which is assertive networking, right? And remember, what your next step then is you've got to stand out from the crowd. See, remember, success is not about fitting in. Success is about standing out. Look at Google, one of the most successful companies in the world, right? They didn't fit in. They found a way to stand out from the crowd. And you've got to do that same thing too. Too many times people say, well, great customer service. I have great customer service. Recognize that great customer service will reduce negative word of mouth, but it's not going to bring you more business. So standing out from the crowd means that you have got to now become an active listener. Well, what does that mean? An active listener. Well, first of all, I want to make sure that you know how to bring all of the people in your chapter referrals. I want you to know how to bring them up in a conversation. So you've got to have a dance card, and you've got to make sure that you can bring them up in a conversation. And guess what? If you don't know how you can bring them up in conversations, how exactly is that going to affect your business? How is it going to affect their business? So you've got to become an active listener if you're going to stand out from the crowd. Now here's something else you can do. When you go to an event or when you go to a meeting, recognize that you have 3 things you have to do or can do. The first thing is, don't go. That's the first thing you can do, right? Go or not go, right? Here's the second thing you can do. Go and only talk to the people you know. Now, if you want to be assertively networked, then here's what I want you to do. I want you to go, and I want you to bring a prospect or a visitor or a business associate, and I want you to introduce them to people. That's what you can do to stand out from the crowd of what everybody else is doing. Make sure that you're giving more than you're gaining at this point, all right? So take charge of the game. You know, we talked earlier that too many entrepreneurs believe that providing great customer service is going to lead people to flock to the door. And guess what? If you read Ivan's book, you're going to discover that that doesn't really do it. You have to have a powerful message. You're going to hear from one of our authors today, Michelle Donovan. And if you read her book, The 29% Solution, if you read her book in section 5, she talks about you must have a powerful message. Now, what does that mean? Anybody ever play that game with young kids? And that game is Whisper Down the Lane. Anybody ever play that game? Okay, so here's what you do. So I'd whisper a message into his ear, and he whispers into his ear, to her ear, and it goes all the way around the room. My message goes all the way around the room, and by the time it finally gets to that person in the very back of the room, she stands up, and she has a very convoluted message, doesn't she? Anybody ever play that game? So what if I were to stand up and I were to say this? Let me read it. Hi, my name is John, and I operate a business that brings first-time mothers and newborns together with dogs to help infants and pets adjust to safely living together. What if that was my message? What if I whispered it into his ear and it went around the room, and by the time it got to her back there, she stands up and says, I'd like to introduce you to Joe. He operates on infants who have been attacked by dogs. Now my question is, how does that affect your message? How does that message affect your business? So you've got to have a powerful message. So how do you do that? Well, here, let's talk about that.